The Holy Gospel according to Luke. Glory to you, Lord. Jesus came down with the 12 and stood on a level place, with a great crowd of his disciples and a multitude of people from all Judea, Jerusalem, and from the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. They had come to hear him and to be healed of their diseases, and those who were troubled with unclean spirits were cured. And all in the crowd were trying to touch him, for power came out from him and healed all of them. Then he looked up at his disciples and said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude you, revile you, and defame you on account of the Son of Man. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for surely your reward is great in heaven, for that is what their ancestors did to the prophets. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for that is what their ancestors did to the false prophets." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. When you have to select a seat in any sort of a public venue, where do you like to sit? Is your first choice to walk up as high as you can and sit in the nosebleeds or the upper deck? Do you race to select the seat that come with the obstructed view warning? When you step into an airplane, do you scan for those coveted middle seats, eyeing up where you're going to get the least amount of shoulder and leg room? If you do, remind me never to travel or go anywhere with you. But more than likely, of course you don't. You're going out somewhere. You want to have a good time, a good view. You want to see the full thing. You want to stretch out and enjoy the ride. Which is exactly why in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus preaches this sermon containing the Beatitudes up on a mountain. Theologically, the thought was that him being up on the mountain put him closer to God. And practically, him being up on the mountain gave everyone the ability to come and see him without a bad seat in the house. But today, we're not in Matthew. Today, we're in Luke. And in Luke, Jesus does not give this sermon from the top of a mountain. Instead, he comes down and stood on a level place. Well, that seems impractical. How are the people going to see him? How do we know who the VIPs are? You know, the ones who booked their fast passes 60 days in advance. The ones who paid extra money, the one to be in the front. The ones who are following him around so they can be sure to get that seat closest. And without designated seating areas, we also hear that all in the crowd are trying to touch him, pushing in on each other, straining, creating a great tenseness as everyone tries to move in as close as they can. And then on top of the chaos of everyone standing around Jesus, he offers a message that's similar to the Beatitudes from Matthew, but also has some striking differences. You're blessed, Jesus says, when you're poor and hungry and weeping. You're blessed when people look down on you, make fun of you, and condemn you because of your faith. Your suffering now will mean that there is reward for you in heaven. So rejoice and stay strong through those times of trial. And then the message changes. And woe to you if you're rich, if you've just eaten, if you're having a good time. Woe to you if people speak well of you, and woe to you if they like your sermons. That took a dramatic turn. I don't know about you, but I love to laugh. I eat 3 meals almost every day, and I don't really ever consider myself truly hungry. I'm by no means rich, but compared to the rest of the world, I'm doing just fine. It seems pretty clear to me which side of these blessings and woes I would fall on. And what about the rest of us? Our community? Our church? We live in a place and are a part of this community where abundance abounds. When was the last time you had to skip a meal when you didn't want to? Don't we like it when people speak highly of us personally? Or speak well of our business? Or a stance we took? So does that mean that I and Faith and Glen Ellen, do we fall onto the woe side of Jesus' sermon today? Now, if Jesus' intent was to do a pure 180 and totally upend the hierarchy of this world and place one group on top of the other, then possibly, yes. But what would that actually solve? Then those who were previously poor would just replace the wealthy and vice versa, and the whole systems of blessings and woes and haves and have-nots and injustice and inequality would stay in place. That is not Jesus' intent. To get that deeper understanding, we need to turn back to Luke's description of where this event is taking place. And Jesus came down with them and stood on a level place. By placing Jesus' sermon and therefore his words on a level place, Jesus is intending to level more than just the physical environment that he's in. Jesus is not simply taking one group who's healthy and wealthy, kicking them out of their status, and was replacing them with a group that was previously dejected and rejected. Jesus instead offers a roadmap for us and for the disciples to work towards a kingdom where we, as a kingdom that repents of hoarding its wealth, and a kingdom where instead they give their resources for the good of the community. A kingdom where the other group is brought up into equal standing with the first. This goes against everything that is fundamental to being a human. When I'm looking for tickets to a show, to a sporting event, to a flight, I don't wonder how my choice of a seat's going to impact others. Now, I don't look for the priciest seat in the house, but I certainly try to maximize the value that I get out of it. And I think that speaks so much to how we as a people view the world around us. How do we maximize what we have here to give us the most reward? How can we choose the best seats? How can we sit closest to Jesus? We're a competitive people, and if one group, the poor, the hungry, the sad, if they're rising up, we automatically assume that means there's another group that's coming down. And that isn't the way of my kingdom, Jesus says. In my kingdom, Jesus says, there's enough for all people to be equal. My kingdom is one without hierarchy, without haves and have-nots, without the need to put someone else down so you can bring yourself up. And this is the kind of kingdom that Jesus begs the disciples to work for and goes so far as to warn them with the woes in verse 24 to 26. Those verses, these woes, are not meant to condemn, to say that one group is eternally bound to woe, but they're meant to warn and to encourage. Don't let your possessions, your happiness, your front row tickets to Hamilton become the most important thing in your life. Because if they are, and that's what you value most, then when the poor are lifted up, you will feel cursed because you no longer have preferential treatment, because that's most important to you. And so instead, Jesus says, use what you have to build others up, to build up the hungry homeless man, to build up the weeping teenager whose identity is rejected by their parents. In my kingdom, God says, in raising them up, you're not actually taking a step down, but taking a step closer to me. And to underscore the truth of his words, after Jesus' sermon is over at the end of chapter 6, Luke records not a single person complaining about Jesus preaching on the level place. There was no grumbling that some couldn't see or hear. There's no complaining that not all had a chance to receive Jesus' power. Jesus' sermon from the level place was a true embodiment of the kingdom of heaven, of Jesus coming down to be in the same place as us. It defied hierarchical norms and left all who were there with one vision of how to work towards the kingdom of God. And blessed are they who follow Jesus in that work.